Right, we are continuing our reaction to Serrano versus Taylor, to one of the greatest fights that we've ever seen, I think it's fair to say. And I'm delighted to say that Eddie Hearn is with us live on the line. Eddie, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Eoin. How are you?
Very well. So, I think it's fair to say that we would have a slight leaning towards Katie Taylor versus her opponent here. But witnessing that Netflix commentary on Friday night, the booing after the fight and after the decision was announced, I did ponder the question, are we the baddies here?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite bizarre, really. And that was what was so sweet about it, if I'm honest. Like, it was the true away day grab. You know, it was like everything was up against us. You know, the access that we had was poor. We were the A side, but we were the away fighter, you know. And we were in Texas this time. There was a lot of support for Serrano. It was an MVP show. And, you know, even as close as the fight was, I'm sort of thinking to myself, you know, are we going to get it? We just felt like we were the opposition the whole week. And when we got the decision, all hell broke loose for the celebrations. And it was just so sweet because she's never had to do that before, really. You know, we received an offer to be part of a show that, you know, it was a tremendous show. I personally didn't like the main event, but that's just my opinion. It's kind of irrelevant. But whenever you choose to fight on somebody else's show, when you have a fighter as valuable, not just as a person, but profile-wise and everything, it's never really that enjoyable, if I'm honest. But when you get the win, oh, it's so sweet. And, you know, it was one of my greatest nights in boxing. It really was. I mean, it was incredible.
Part of me thought that the reaction from the Serrano camp, the over-the-top interview from Jordan Maldonado in fight and in the ring after the fight, and these sorts of theatrics around, you know, Serrano's being screwed over here, were exactly that. They were the theatrics that were being propped up during the night, because that's what, in my opinion anyway, Paul versus Tyson ended up being, was just a bit of theatre that wasn't a very serious bout, and that sort of infected the tone that the co-main event existed in.
Yeah, I think that Taylor Serrano, I mean, I wouldn't say it saved the show, but it gave the show unbelievable credibility on a night that I think boxing lost a lot of credibility. The audience numbers were incredible, you know, and you can't knock the job that MVP and Jake have done because they're not really overly bothered about the integrity of the sport. I mean, you know, sometimes I get criticised about, you know, my integrity of the sport. Trust me, this is on another level to anything you've ever seen. I care about the sport of boxing from the bottom up. And, you know, the narrative of the week was that, you know, Serrano is the biggest star in women's boxing, and, you know, she was unlucky in the first fight, and that kind of transcended through the night. Like the commentary, I couldn't believe what, you know, people were messaging me during the fight saying, oh, you know, they've got Katie 3-0 down after 3. I'm like, I mean, there was an argument she was 3-0 up. You know, she took one shot at the end of the first round, which was extremely eye-catching, but 1 minute 50 of the 2 minutes before it. So, you know, whatever. But also, I felt like, you know, Jordan came on, had this big rant about, you know, what a dirty fighter Katie Taylor was. You know, where's our right to reply? They were never going to interview me.
Did they ask you, Eddie? That's
no, they were never. Listen, I'm like banned. I was pretty much banned the whole week. So,
but did they ask Katie's corner? That's one thing I wondered. Did they reject that opportunity?
No, it was like, you know, thanks Jordan. And I mean, to be fair, Jordan did kind of steal the march of the interview and come in. But when, in my opinion, when a fighter of Katie's magnitude and greatness gets accused of things like that, you at least go back to the other team for a response. But listen, like, it's not the end of the world. It was just nice to get out of there. But, you know, I heard your interview with Nakisa, and, you know, a lot of people talk about my celebrations. There was some of the things that were said about Katie Taylor by the people next to me and around me was really, you know, was poor form.
Really?
You know, throughout the fight. And in a fight, you can shout out, use your jab, you know, go forward, do this. But some of the stuff that was being shouted out, and to be honest with you, when the result came, I just thought, have some of that. That's what I thought. And I looked over to all of them who were saying these things during the fight, and just, you know, it was like, we done it. And that's the passion that I have for Katie and, you know, the win. And I'm never going to not be me in that respect. And I didn't like the way that they behaved during the fight, or sometimes during the week as well. But we're competitive, you know, and everybody wanted to win that fight so bad. And sometimes in the sport, emotion can pile over, not just in the ring or with the fighters, but with the teams. And you saw that from Jordan. You know, Jordan's a very hot-headed guy. He's very passionate about Serrano. You know, he really cares about, he really wants to win. So in that frustrating moment, I felt like we won the fight 6 rounds to 4 and we had a point deducted. I actually thought 95-94 was a perfect card. And so did all 3 judges, which was actually quite nice to get that, you know, actual consistency in the judge. So, but if it was 95-95 or if it was 95-94 the other way, you just sort of gone, but it wasn't. And what we can't do, like the disrespect that Katie is being shown, even now, you know, in terms of this whole narrative of, oh, she's a dirty fighter and, you know, Amanda Serrano was the real winner on the night. You know, her stock's through the roof. She's the biggest star in boxing. Let's just take a second to understand who we're talking about here. You know, the all-time great, right? Not just in the ring, but out of the ring. Like, no one has ever achieved what Katie Taylor has achieved, from amateur to professional, and the way that she's conducted herself. And, you know, the amazing thing now, she won't even mind me saying it, she's not the fighter she once was, right? In terms of her sharpness and in terms of her body. But what she has more heart than any fighter I've ever witnessed in the sport. And she's using that heart to get through the toughest of moments, you know, the deepest of wars. Against Cameron in the second fight, you know, even in the first fight, Serrano won, and particularly on Saturday, when you just see her go to the deepest parts of the well for victory. And, you know, we had some great moments in the change room after where she was very honest. You know, she sort of said to me, it's getting really hard. You know, I said, what do you mean it's getting hard? It's been hard for about 3 years. I mean, I've never seen, and then you go back to like the Pursoon 2 fights, even Natasha Jonas, like it's been war after war after war after war. And to kind of disrespect that, I don't like it at all. And I don't like the narrative being spun that, you know, listen, Serrano's an amazing fighter. She's a legend of women's boxing. But let's not sit there and say she's the biggest name in women's boxing, she's this and she's that. She's 2-0 down to Katie Taylor, who has won 6 European Amateur Championships, 5 World Amateur Championships, Olympic gold, undisputed lightweight championship, undisputed super lightweight championship, filled Madison Square Garden, boxed in front of 80,000 at Millennium Stadium, 90,000 at Wembley Stadium, sold out arenas in Ireland twice, boxed all over the world. Yeah, like, come on, this is the greatest to ever do it. And you will never, ever hear me not defend that right for Katie Taylor, because as a fighter and as a person, she is, like, you guys, and you know it as well, you are so lucky to have her, and you should cherish her with all your heart, because I don't think there'll ever be another like her. You know, the greatest to ever do it. Yeah.
Hard to disagree with that. Just as an aside, why weren't you allowed to initially stand at the front of the press room after the fight?
I don't know. I mean, like, even when I arrived at the weigh-in, they wouldn't let me into her changing room. You know, we had a big bust-up with security downstairs, and then I had a bust-up with Nakisa at the day of the weigh-in. I just said to him, listen, whatever you think about us, I would never, ever stop you from being able to be with your fighter or be in the changing room with the fighter or whatever. So we kind of settled that a little bit. And then on the night, you know, it was only myself that was allowed back there from the matchroom team, with Sean Palmer and Frank Smith. They weren't given passes. But listen, some of it was contractual. Some of it was just because they don't like us. Some of it was just games. It's nothing new in boxing. Some people do it, some people don't.
Why don't they like you?
I mean, we have a big defamation case against Jake Paul, which is, you know, getting quite deep now. Nakisa felt that I was disrespectful about Mike Tyson against Jake Paul. That was, you know, the big thing. So he's like, you know, you want to come to the fight, but you've been talking negatively about the fight. I said, people ask me the question. I'm just being honest. I'm not saying it out of spite. I'm saying it because I don't like it. So, but you made us a great offer. I'm not going to let that offer pass Katie Taylor by. We're here, and we're glad we're here. And I keep saying in all the interviews I'm doing, MVP did an amazing job on that show, right? For that fight to be on Netflix, for that fight to deliver the numbers that it did, amazing for Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, and for boxing.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that we have to all agree that Jake Paul against Mike Tyson was a good watch, because it wasn't at all. But it's irrelevant. It's all right. You buy into whatever you want to buy into. If you know you're boxing, it was always going to be like that. And I think they didn't like the way that they wanted me to say, what an amazing event it was, and how compelling I thought Jake Paul against Mike Tyson was. I didn't. Not going to lie. That's just how it is. We were there. We were there to raid the bank. That's what we were doing. We were turning up. We were taking the money. We were defending our belts, and then we were getting out of there. And that's exactly what we done. And that's now probably some of the reaction of, damn, we gave them this platform, and good. Look, it's great for boxing. And Katie Taylor is now not just one of the biggest stars of women's boxing. She's one of the biggest stars of combat sports, because 75 million people globally got to see one of the fights of the year, and just an unbelievable performance from an all-time great. So we're happy as Larry right now, but we're not, we're not coming out and saying, if Amanda Serrano wants the third fight, well, she better join the queue. No, we're saying we'd love to do it again. We'd love to work with MVP, but we've got choices, we've got opportunities. But that's the problem with boxing. It's the ego sometimes that says, I saw Nakisa's interview, I thought you'd done a great job. And it's like, let me tell you, there's been no regard for Katie Taylor in this fight. What are you talking about? No regard for one of the greatest fighters of all time, who went so deep. I mean, she boxed her for the first half of the fight, and then she decided to stand and have a war with her for the second fight. She did it all. And it was a really close fight. What Nakisa should be saying is, wow, what two tremendous examples these two women are. Two all-time greats. And on the night, Katie Taylor edged the fight. And for me, the first fight was 7-3 to Katie Taylor, and the second fight was 6-4. Maybe in the trilogy, they'll get a bit closer.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just have the clean sweep.
I just want to give you a reply to one thing that Nakisa said last night. Here's a quick clip of what he was saying.
Go to the Matchroom social media handles. See what you see post-fight. What did they post post-fight about Katie Taylor, Owen? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Guess what they posted?
You're going to tell me they posted Eddie Hearn. Otherwise,
no, they posted zero.
Oh, zero.
They posted zero about Katie Taylor. They posted Sky Nicholson. Katie Taylor just won the biggest fight of her life in front of the biggest audience in women's sports history in the U.S. In history, across all sports.
So I hadn't been checking your Instagram after the game, Eddie, obviously.
Yeah, we were definitely posting about Katie Taylor, but we also have the featherweight world champion, who is the same weight class as Amanda Serrano, who is the box rec number 2 in the world, who has been calling Amanda Serrano out for 3 years. So I think the Matchroom handle also said, your other fight now at featherweight is Sky Nicholson, a WBC champion. But, I think the trilogy is obviously the money fight for Amanda Serrano. She's got all those other belts at featherweight. So all the featherweight champions are saying, what's happening? She hasn't defended those belts for over a year. So, but at the same time, both fighters never really look at the fighters coming through saying, I'll take a risk against a great young fighter. They look at the big money fights, and that's the same for Katie Taylor. It's a bit like Caroline Dubois, probably. I'm not sure if you're aware of her. She's the interim world champion, really good fighter. She's calling out Katie Taylor non-stop, but that's not really a fight that's going to interest Katie Taylor. The fight that interests her are the biggest fights available in the sport, and that is Serrano, and that is, of course, as well, Chantel Cameron.
Is it a waste of time asking you about Croke Park, Eddie?
I mean, how much have we talked about it over the years? I think it's like, if there was ever a time, I've actually said this before, though, to be fair, but if there was ever a time to do it, it does feel like, we're in November now, right? That gives you enough preparation for a summer event at Croke Park. You've just seen the biggest female fight of all time in front of the biggest audience of all time. It's like, surely, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's ever 100% guaranteed that Katie Taylor will fight again.
Yeah,
I think I'm sure she will, but it's going to take something pretty special and unique. And that, we had a long call with her last night with Brian Peters, and she was full of, in the change room after, I kind of felt like if she was to turn around now and say, that's it for me, I'd actually be extremely happy in a way that you can bow out on a night like that. And then she's just like, there's a few things though that I really want to do. And I said, what's that? And she said, obviously I want to fight at Croke Park. I said,
right.
Yeah.
So she said that this week.
Yeah. And she said, and I want to fight at Las Vegas.
Right.
And then you start thinking, wow, and I know there's been a lot of interest from, of course, the Madison Square Garden guys because of the first Serrano fight to do something possibly in the Sphere in Las Vegas, which again would just be so iconic for her career and Croke Park. But I don't think, if it's Chantel back at the 3 Arena or if it's, Amanda Serrano back at MSG, I'm not sure that's necessarily going to really excite her in the same way that doing something different would. And, when I said to her about Croke Park and Vegas, you could hear her voice, go up a few octaves and say, oh, God, that's got me excited. So I would like to, would have to work with MVP and say, let's look at the options. Let's look at Croke Park. Let's build the story and the narrative around it. Let's go back to the Irish government and say, well, what about now? And I've always said to you, people get confused with when we ask for help. Sometimes the narrative is, well, why should the government give money to Matchroom or Katie? It's not about giving the money. It's just being in line with all the other economics of going to a major stadium. And I've said it before, if Croke Park cost the same to us as Wembley Stadium, we would have already done it.
It would have already happened. But
we would have already done it.
It's a point that I made in the interview yesterday, and you can set the record straight on this, is the fact that you've managed to make fights happen in conjunction with the Saudis at this point. Has that not opened up avenues for you that blow other economics out of the water completely?
Yeah, although I do feel like the economics right now for this fight are actually potentially bigger outside of Saudi, because you're now talking about a massive gate, right? Historically, the gate at Madison Square Garden, $1.5 million, and upwards. This gate now could do $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 million, right? All of a sudden, Netflix, DAZN, whoever it is, are going to be major bidders for the rights fees for this fight. If not, it could be on pay-per-view and drive a huge number there as well. So, yes, of course, Saudis have the ability, if they want it, to turn around and go, Taylor Serrano 3, how much is it? There's yours, it's on. But because of the revenue that can be generated, it's not, it's a serious number. And Katie's made a lot of money in her career, but this is different. This is different money, and she's never really been financially motivated, but she'll be quite pleasantly surprised when she sees the potential numbers for her next fight. And, you never want to have one fight too many. But at the same time, she's in a wonderful position right now.
Just one last thing. One of my concerns after last Friday was that it was fantastic, obviously, for Taylor and, to be fair, for Amanda Serrano to get the paydays that they finally deserved in their career. But it kind of felt that they got the paydays because they were attached to what was one of the most watched boxing fights of all time in Tyson versus Paul, but something that was a bit of a farce at the same time. Farces are selling well in the world of boxing right now, Eddie. How do you ensure that she continues to get paid well without having to attach herself to another farce?
Well, I think because of the audience, I mean, she's always been paid well, but that was her highest payday. Actually, marginally, because the Cameron 1 fight generated a huge amount of money as well. So she's consistently earned a lot of money.
She got paid almost $6 million for the Cameron fight first time.
No, don't believe the numbers that you read anywhere regarding what Taylor got or what Serrano got.
Did Taylor get paid more than Serrano?
I mean, I have no idea. I would think so, yes, but they would never tell you that anyway. But
Amanda said the opposite, obviously.
Yeah, the numbers that get bounced around of 6 million, you know, they can be exaggerated at times. And she made a huge amount of money, right? But at the same time, she's consistently made a lot of money for 4 or 5 fights now. But this fight is different. And when you say about bolting it onto other fights, of course, the first fight wasn't bolted on.
Yeah.
Cameron wasn't bolted onto anything. But because of the profile and the viewership of that last fight, she can stand alone with Serrano, and they can make by far the biggest paydays of their career so far, which is, is always the aim. And that's one of her aims, is that we can find equality between the male and the female fight purse. But it has to come as a measurement of commercial value, not just because we should pay everybody the same. That's not the reality of the commercial world. Right now, when you're talking about draws in boxing, forget female boxing, tell me the top 5, the top 10 draws in world boxing. Katie Taylor is right up there, especially coming off the back of that audience. So, yes, and I would almost be insistent that this is just a standalone headline fight on their own. It's what they deserve. They were the standout fight on Friday night. It was the fight that everybody wanted to see. It was the fight that entertained the entire world. And they could do it 5 or 6 times. They won't. But every time these two fight, they will give us an epic.
Definitely. So sorry, just on a point on that, you think the $6 million is potentially exaggerated from Serrano's side?
Yes, absolutely.
And obviously, just to paint this out, why would they want to inflate that figure?
Because that's just what they do. The whole thing's a propaganda mission, whether it's, driving numbers online. I mean, you heard it yesterday. You were in the very argument of social media numbers and followers, and, followers equals greatness, really. I mean, that's not the reality of the sporting world. Unfortunately, it's a reality of a world that has been thrust upon us. But I don't see it like that. You can drive numbers, you can create bots, you can do all kinds of different things to put comments here, and you see it all the way. No, it's not just with that team; it's with other teams as well. It's like a propaganda mission to tell you that this person is the greatest of all time, and the whole world was against Katie Taylor, and the right person should have got the victory, and that person was X, and and it's like Katie's not interested in posting any. I mean, if Katie had her way, I don't even think she'd have a phone. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of the time, and she's been a victim of that over the years, because she's left millions of dollars on the table because she doesn't want to do sponsorship deals with brands that she doesn't believe in, or products that she doesn't want to be aligned with. She doesn't want to do interviews day in, day out. She doesn't want to post on social media all day. It's not her thing. She just loves to fight. And she's a person of great faith and great quality.
Yeah.
And one of the purest individuals I've ever met. And we need to embrace that, because it's a dying breed. It really is, particularly in modern day sport.
Yeah. And hopefully whatever happens next is the best decision for Katie Taylor herself. Listen, Eddie, you've been good with your time. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Cheers. Eddie Hearn of Matchroom Boxing there on the line. We'll take a quick break.